Welcome back to Site Tech Intermountain Siteworks training videos. This video is going to cover how to do a site calibration. We're going to include setting the base station up and the site calibration with all the different control points. Here I wanted to show you that there's different types of calibration points that you're going to want to have set around your project based on if it's linear or if it's a big project size. Make sure the control points that you're asking for from the engineering firm or whoever's giving them to you has them out and around the project, set right and in proper positions. And here's some pictures of different calibration points that may be set for you, meaning pins in asphalt, rebar and cap, whatever it may be. Be aware of these out here. So don't be afraid of site calibrations. They're not hard. We just need to do them right. So this process is going to show you the proper steps to get the site calibration done correctly.
All right, now that we've got our site set up, we have our model loaded and our control points in, the first thing we need to do before we can do a site calibration is set the base station. So I want to go through a couple things with the base station to show you. Today we've got our R750 out here. As you can see, I don't have the big whip antenna on here. So your kit is going to come with different types of antennas that you can put on, a single ribbed band or a double ribbed band. One thing that I wanted to tell you as customers, if you've got a job site such as this one right here that's not way large and your base isn't really far away from it, you don't have to have the high gain or the high output antenna set on there. You can simply put this antenna that comes in the kit. It's just, we call it a little rubber ducky antenna, and it can be into the same exact port right on the back side of the base. So if you put that on there, just make sure that it's not tipped up like this, because the signal actually comes out this way. So just make sure that if it's either vertical on the pole or wherever you set your base, that it's up or down. But on this job site, we only need the small one. So that's why I don't have that antenna up here. The other thing that you need to know before you set the base station up is to see what type of Zephyr you have, which is this top receiver. And you can see right here we've got a Zephyr 3 base. So before we do the site calibration, we need to actually tell the base that it's an unknown position. So we need to Bluetooth into it with the data collector, give it its unknown position, set this radio channel, and then at that point we can hook up to the 980 or the 780 receiver or 986 or whatever you've got and do the site calibration. One thing that I suggest, since you've got Bluetooth coming off of your R750 and Bluetooth off of this, is don't have your receiver on when you're doing this, just to help with the Bluetooth options. So on your data collector, once you've got everything in here, you can see we've got the job site loaded, the model showing, and the control points, which are those triangles on here. Those are also showing where they're supposed to. One thing I like to do when I do a site calibration is go into the gear on the right side right here and go to point name and turn that on so I can see the point names on the screen. What you want to do is go ahead and hit your menu button in the top left, go to project setup and connect device, and you're going to connect GNSS. Now we're going to go through this list real quick. Right off the bat, you're going to hook up to your base and not the Rover. So go ahead and go base, and right here we've got Bluetooth, because there is an option to also connect through a DB9 into them, but Bluetooth works just fine. If you've already been connected to it, you can see there's a list right here. But if not, and you haven't been connected to it or it doesn't show up, hit the Bluetooth symbol on the right there and let it search for it. And where that is on the back of the base. I know a lot of numbers on here, but there's a serial number down here. This SN, just look for the last four. So 5538. 5538 is the last four of the serial, and we're going to look for that device. It's now popped up on here. I'm going to go ahead and select it, push OK. So I'm Bluetoothing into it. You don't have to be standing right next to it, but Bluetooth isn't going to go way far. So, I mean, if I went over by that pond over there, I may start losing it. So once it's connected, there's a bunch of different options here. Correction method, I'm going to hook into it radio and receiver. I'm not doing VRS or IBS or any of that stuff. So it says, okay, radio and receiver, what channel do I want it to broadcast out? That's this number that's going to broadcast out of the antenna to any machines, rovers, anything you have on the job site. I'm going to go ahead, just pick 26 out here. And what it's going to do is it's going to come up with a check if channel network is clear option on here. This is actually a really good option if you're in a valley like we have here in Salt Lake, where a lot of people are running GPS and they're running Trimble. So there's people up on those benches, especially right over on that project. We've got Kennecott. We've got a lot of projects here that might be broadcasting in channels. And since we only have 40, we need to check in this area to verify. If you're ever doing this in an area where you're pretty confident there's no other people running Trimble GPS, you can go ahead and skip this and hit the skip button. But I like to let this process run through. Okay, now that the checked if the channel is clear, we came up with nothing. It didn't tell me there was anything. So in this option, we've got base anywhere, lat, long, height, local coordinate, unknown, and control point. Since it's a brand new job site, the base has never been here on this pole, brand new, I'm going to actually calibrate and hit my own coordinate system with the CSV file. So I'm going to tell the base, you don't know where you're at. It will still have a global lat and long that it understands, but I'm not telling it where it's at right now. So unknown position. Base name is kind of important because if someone else were to pick up your channel 26 and they didn't see the name of their job site, it just says base, there's a chance they may not know, and including yourself. So try to keep this to a low number, but something relative to what you've got here. So I'm going to call this Site Tech Cal. I'm going to say OK. And then the next one on antenna is asking what Zephyr, which again, this is what this number is right here, Zephyr 3 base. So you want to make sure that you pick the one that's on there. Sometimes when these get screwed down on to specific things that you have on job sites, that gets covered. So if it's your base you're using all the time, it's good to know what it is. Now here's another one. Pay attention to this on measured height. The measured method is bottom of antenna. We have nothing else on here, no quick release. We're calling that bolt right there, I'm going to call that 0 for the vertical height because I am not setting that base station over a known elevation. And every time I come out here and screw this base on, it's always going to go in the same spot and the same height, so I'm not associating it to that. If you were setting the base up over a control point that had an elevation and you were setting it that way, you'd want to actually put the height in, but just rule of thumb, if you're on a fixed point like this, on a fence post or however you do it, make this 0. Now, there's a couple more options here. Elevation mask. Elevation mask, that 10 is defaulted to 10. What that is from right here on the receiver, it's asking what degree up do I want to pick satellites up in the sky. So 10 degrees means 10 degrees up all the way around. It's not perfectly flat. So in this area where we do have some mountains, but they're quite a ways out there, 10 degrees is fine. It's going to pick up all the satellites here down to that. If you were in a canyon and you wanted to eliminate it trying to find satellites inside a hillside, you can change that number to like 20 degrees or 25 degrees, whatever. That's what that is. Most of the time, leave this on 10. And then the correction option at the bottom here where it's the CMRX or plus, all the newer Trimble gear always needs to be on CMRX because it's a bigger data package, the information it's sending out. If you did put it on plus, it would still work, but CMR plus is for older equipment, older data collectors, older receivers. It's a sized down data package, so let's leave that on CMRX. As soon as that is all filled out, we hit accept. It'll finish base setup. And then it will give me a picture at the very end here that gives me the info bar. Normally, I usually just go away from this and just say okay because it's giving me an actual base lat and long. There is a chance that you might want to, just up to you, pull your phone out and either take a picture of it or do a screenshot of it so that you can actually remember the lat and long if this all was all lost. So go ahead and hit okay. Now that we're done there, it's disconnected from the base station. So the base is set. I will do another video later on the R750s, but on the faceplate right here, you can go and verify, and it says what network it is on. So it is broadcasting out. It's waiting for us to hook our rover up to it. Now that we've got our base station set up over here, it's broadcasting out on channel 26. We're going to go ahead and set up the rover. So I've turned on my rover here. As soon as you hit that button, you can't instantly connect to it because it's got to pick up some satellites and initialize. I, as good rule of thumb, like to have the faceplate looking towards me. Make sure that your pole is always clicked in all the way up and you've got a good sharp point on, and that you understand if you have a quick release on or not. That is the right height for 6.562, including the quick release, which I'll show you. So once that's initialized, base is running, we'll go into the menu button. We'll go to Project Setup. we'll go to connect device, and we're going to go GNSS again, but instead of doing base, we're going to do Rover. We're going to do the same thing with Bluetooth, and we're going to search for Bluetooth if it's not already in here. And that serial number, if you don't know what it is also on the bottom of your GPS receiver, whatever it is you have. It's right here. I always look at the last four again. So 1438 is the serial number you're looking for if there's multiple people in the area that have Bluetooth devices. 1438 pops up. It also shows the base station because we're in the range. It'll connect this connection here, and then we're going to set the radio to connect to the base. Once it's connected, we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to do radio and receiver, and it's going to ask what channel are we picking up from the base station. So we're on 26. Here is where you want to make sure that when it actually checks for corrections and picks up corrections from a base station, that you see the name on your data collector of the base name that you set over there. So once it's actually made the connection to the base, it says, hey, I found a base and it's connected, and the name that it's calling out is Site Cal. So we know that we picked up the correct base. If you saw a different name there, you're picking up someone else's channel 26. Go ahead and hit OK. Now, using quick release, you need to tell it this yes or no just to get your rod height correct. The quick release is this little extension between the bottom of the yellow and the top of this pole, and it tells you that it's 0.13 in height, but if you don't have to account for that. If you say yes here, it'll account for that height. Now, enable tilt compensator. If you have a tilt compensator, it won't let you use it during a site calibration in case there's any error in the pole. So we're going to say no to that. We can turn it back on later on. And then your rod height, there again, from the bottom of this white right here, or this silver to the point is 6.562 when it's clicked in. You don't have to add that. Just like I said, leave the using quick release on. Once this is all filled out, you say yes. The nice thing is this is only once that you really need to fill it out at the beginning of the project. After that, it's going to remember it day to day or every time you connect. First question it asks, do you want to set up or do you want to do a site calibration? The Rover setup is complete. You say yes. If you did say no to it there, it's not the end of the world. You can go to the menu and go to project setup and find that again. But right off the bat, it says, okay, what calibration points are we going to start with? There is no order that you have to start in. You don't have to start at one or the very first one in numerical order. You could bounce all over the project. So it doesn't matter, but it's good to go and find your control points first to know where they're at so that when you do this, you're not hunting for them. But I am going to show you a couple tricks if you don't know where one is. You have to at least find one first or know of one, then it'll help us guide us to other ones. So in the top left right here, there's a plus button, and it's asking control points. What do we want to start on? Now remember what I told you earlier. If you don't have all your control points in right now and it didn't recognize multiple control points, it's going to assume that we're just doing a single point, 1 point cal. But now it's saying, okay, you've got a bunch of control points in here. Which one do you want to use first? You can either zoom in on the screen and actually touch the one you want to start with, or you can go into the menu in the top right here and actually look at the list. It actually has CP 1000, 101, 102, all the way through. So you can select it there. You can also in here look at the northing, easting, and elevation to verify that it's right. So if you had to key in a point, meaning it wasn't in your CSV file here, but it's all written on the stakes, which I'll show you on here in a second, you could hit this plus button, which is to the right of the menu button, and on the fly, in the middle of your calibration, name a point, type in the northing, easting, and elevation. But like I've said in past videos, you got to be cautious when you're keying in control points. It's just human error. We're in a hurry. We've got gloves on. It's cold, whatever. You might fat finger a number and get it wrong. So that's why it's nice to get a CSV file, that control point list, from the engineer or whoever set them for you if you're doing it this way. So we're going to go ahead and select CP 1002. So now that I've gotten to a control point that I know that's here, you can see that it's control point for CP 1002. This one does have the northing and eastings written on it. Kind of hard to see. These are a little bit older stakes, but you could type in that northing, that easting, and the elevation that's down there. Look for what control point we've got in the ground. Like I talked about, there's different types based on different areas that they put them. And once you've found it, we can go ahead and set up on it. A rule of thumb that I've learned doing site calibrations is understanding your bubble on your pole here. When we're doing site calibrations, this is one thing versus just normally staking on a job site that you really want to make sure that you spend the extra time to make sure it's right. It's a one-time job thing at the very beginning of a job site. So one thing as a rule of thumb, if you're not confident that your pole bubble, the bubble in your pole is accurate, and I'm not talking way off, but if you feel like it's off just a tiny bit, always face the general same direction every control point that you shoot. And for that reason, if I were to shoot this one facing relatively north and then shoot another one facing south, if there was any error in this bubble, it's going to actually show it in the horizontal residuals. So we want to make sure we do calibrations correctly. Once you're up on it, I like to kick the feet into the ground. Be very cautious on making sure the control point or your pole is as level as you can. Find it on the screen. Once you're good, a rule of thumb that I like to do on a windy day where it's a little breezy is keep a hand or a finger on it just so it doesn't blow over backwards or come out of level. We're going to go ahead and hit select. The next screen before it monitors it and records it is one last check of how we want to do this. Measure method is bottom of quick release. The other option is bottom of antenna, extension, all that. What it's asking is, where is that receiver on the pole? Once again, using the bottom of the quick release. The height of the pole is 6.562, and the horizontal and vertical tolerances mean that I'm telling it, and these are default numbers, but if the vertical and horizontals are outside of an inch, which is 0.82, I don't want it to accept it. It'll start flashing red, but I'm okay with it going up to that point. Now, the minimum measure time is defaulted at 15 seconds. Trimble very well tells us that anything more than 15 seconds is just a little bit of gravy, right? It'll get a little bit tighter. What I would tell you is where my base is really, really close right here, I've got good tolerances. You can see I got 34 satellites. I'm at 9 thousandths horizontally and vertical at 19. I'm good. But if my base was 3 miles away, 4 miles away, I was just on the verge of that limit, and I know I was getting late corrections, 2 and 3 seconds, I would bump that 15 seconds up to a minute and a half sometimes. It just gives it more time, which is that data log at the very bottom there where it says recording interval. That 5 right there, just if you've ever wondered what that means, is it means that in 15 seconds, every 5 seconds, it's going to kind of average out. So 5, 10, 15, it's going to take 3 averages of that 15 seconds, if that makes sense. Once we're good to go, you hit start, and it's going to give you a countdown on the top right. Count up, to 15 seconds. It's giving me my current horizontal and vertical residuals. The bubble on the screen is the bubble that was in the receiver here. It looks like it's just a hair off from the bubble on the pole. I can calibrate that together. Now we have a control point that's in there, but it says at the top there, 3 or more measurements are required for me to even see what the residuals are coming out to. So I need to at least hit 2 more to go on. Now, don't hit finish in the bottom right here. That'll finish the calibration. It'll warn you. You just want to hit the plus button right here, and we're just going to systematically bounce through all the different control points here. So on the next control point, I'm actually doing CP 1003. I verify that it says the same thing on the stake. Make sure that your control points down at the bottom here don't look like they've been bumped. You can see that since I put these in, some work has been done back here, and they've dug some ponds in. Just make sure it doesn't visibly look bad. I mean, obviously it's going to show us on here if it is wrong, but as soon as you hit the next control point, you can touch it. So you can see that currently it's actually giving me residuals to get me close, but those numbers are still off about a foot and a half to 3 feet because I haven't hit the second one yet. And I'll show you throughout the process here that it'll get tighter and tighter. So I'm on, feet are kicked in. I'm facing the same general direction I was before. I'm going to go ahead and hit select. Don't need to change anything on the next screen. It's the same as what I showed you earlier. Go ahead and hit the measure, and it'll count right up to 15 seconds again. So the second one's done. You can see I've got my hand on here. That's a little habit I've had from over the years to just make sure it doesn't move during that 15 seconds. But we still need one more in order to actually get the live residuals of what my calibration is at this point. We're going to move on. So hopefully most of your control points that just got set by the actual surveyors are pretty obvious like this. they're pretty easy to find, right? So walk up. This ribbon on the fence is just kind of an indication that it's down here in case the stakes were knocked over. This control point looks like it hasn't been moved either. Once again, I'm going to try to face as close to the same direction as I can, which is looking that way to the north. I'm going to spend extra time on my bubble here, at least on the pole, because I trust the bubble in the pole more than the one that I do on the screen, because I haven't done the calibration for my rover for a little bit. So I'm going off the pole because it's a brand new pole and it's been calibrated. We're going to go ahead and hit plus. Find the next one either by touching it, and now you can see the go north, go south is within hundreds and thousands, because the second one helped me orient. It's not a vertical, it's just a north and an east. We're going to go ahead and start. We'll observe this one also. As soon as this one is done, you're actually going to see the residuals after 3. I always say, even on small job sites, I would like a minimum of 5 control points out and around, like I talked about earlier. But we're going to do more than 5 because it's a training site that I have here. But you can accept a calibration after 3. You could accept it after 1 or 2, but I wouldn't suggest it. So now you can see where I've got some vertical differences between a couple of them. Not terrible, but it's averaging it out. So at the top here where it says calibration is in tolerance with a green check mark, my H horizontal is within 3 thousandths and my vertical is within 300ths. I'm okay with that. Those are really good numbers, and the numbers might change here as we go to a couple more control points. So here's an example of a control point that I haven't visited for a while, but I can see my ribbon on the fence, so I know that it should be here. It looks like someone came through a little while ago, since the grass is already growing, and it's actually been wiped out here. Hopefully the control point's not gone. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and use the rover to find that next control point. Because now I can hit the plus button, and I know I'm on the south side of my project, and it shows me, it's like, okay, I'm close to 1005. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to come start rooting around a little bit. So I'm going to look at those numbers, see how it says go north 2/10 and west 9, almost a foot. I'm going to just start poking around, and once I find the general, okay, I'm within 200, it's within a tenth, I'm going to start kicking around a little bit. Oh, and there it is. There's my orange control point. It looks like it has not been nicked. Looks like they skimmed right over the top of it. So we'll go ahead and put on it. Face north again, same direction. Level up. So 1005 looks like the residuals are really good compared to the other ones. So we'll go ahead and move on from there. Okay, for my next control point, I'm set up on 1006. I'm going to hit plus. I'm already sitting on it. Go ahead and touch it, or once again, go into the menu and select it via the menu. In this scenario, you can see where I've got a lot of equipment around me. I know on your job sites, you're not going to have equipment and forklifts, but understand that you could be next to a building. You could be getting multipath from a glass building, a Connex, a job trailer. You could have a tree over your head. Hopefully, the guy that set the control point put it in an area that he could set it with GPS and get good corrections. But just be aware of what's around you and make sure that you're getting good tolerances still. You can see that my vertical has climbed a little bit, but I'm still okay with the numbers that I'm seeing. And it looks like we're still doing really good. We're 1200 on horizontal and 24 on vertical. We're going to set up on it, but I want to make sure that I'm still trying to face north in case there's any error in my pole, which I know I don't have any. I'm just showing you the option. So we're going to go ahead and set up on it, level up as close as we can get it, hit the plus button. We already can see that I'm on 2000 or 1000 over here. So we're going to click CP 1000, hit select, same process. Still looking really good. I'm going to go to my plus symbol, and I'm going to show you one thing on here. If you look at the ones that I've done already, CP 1006, 1005, they've got green triangles around, or circles, excuse me. That circle tells me, when I look at the main screen, which ones I have done and what I haven't. Obviously, I can go back to this screen and see the list of the ones that I've done, but I just wanted to show you that it's got circles around them. So you can see that I've done 1000, and I only have one more, 1001. So let's go get that one real quick, and we will finish this site calibration out. So here's my last control point, and as you can see on the ground, it's old control. It wasn't set recently, but on a job site that you may have a scenario where it's brand new control, but they didn't paint it, or something got wiped out. The stake's gone, they didn't mark it, but it's in the asphalt here. What I've done here is I've selected that last control point, and I can see it on the screen, and I can watch my go south and east to find that point. So south 3, I usually go one at a time. You can try to do them both at the same time. But if you just want to figure out the south and then go east, level your bubble up, south and then east a little bit more. Basically get as close as you can on the screen right here. Once you feel like it's good, look down right where your point's at, start doing a little bit of checking. And it looks like right there is my control point. Kind of hard to see, but it's a pin that's been pounded into the asphalt. So I know where it's at. I'm going to go ahead and set up on it, face the same direction. I'm going to level up, and we're going to hit our last one. But what I want to do here is actually show you really quick what would happen if the control or your pole or the control was off a little bit, either horizontally or vertically. So what I'm going to do is leave the vertical right, and I'm going to pull my pole back a little bit, and I'm going to hurry and hit start. And I'm going to calibrate it, and you can see my bubble is off. I'm just showing you this to prove that if it was in grass and someone with a lawnmower or something hit it, or it was just the wrong control point, what I'm going to do here is get a reading of how far off it is and what you can do. So it says the tilt value is out. Do you want to save the measurement? I'm going to say yes, but you can see that it's in here and the vertical is off on the horizontal right there, 173. So I can uncheck that. The vertical is good, but the horizontal was off. I don't want to do that. I'm going to just redo that control point, right? Because I just wasn't paying attention, and let's say it was my fault, which in this scenario I'm just showing you, I had my bubble off. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to save it. You can uncheck 1001 on the left right there. Completely uncheck that calibration point, go back in and shoot it again. And same thing if my vertical was off. Let's say my pole, I had to go to lunch, I had to stop the calibration, came back, it wasn't clicked in. It's not the end of the world. Uncheck the point, hit select again, and it says selected point is already in the list. Do you want to remeasure it? And I say yes. So I'm basically redoing that control point. Don't be afraid of calibrations, like I told you earlier. We do have very specific things that need to be done right, but do not be afraid of site calibrations, especially if it's wrong, because if it's wrong and you've done your stuff right, and it comes out bad, it's the engineer that either fat fingered his numbers or gave you bad numbers. So here it is. There's my whole entire list. I'm good to go. I feel like my horizontal at 011 is good. My vertical at 22 is way tight. Trimble doesn't tell me or anybody what to accept and what not to accept. What I will tell you is I've had some bad control in the past that I've done, and my rule of thumb, people always ask me, well, when would I accept it and when would I not? If my horizontals get outside of 4 to 500ths, basically half an inch, I start getting really nervous. I try not to accept any calibrations out of 5 to 600ths. I know that's a small number. You're saying, well, hundredths, that's tight. You still want to make sure your calibration's tight, because those triangulations that it makes for your site, your rovers are going to find that issues out in the middle. The machines are going to find issues. Just stay with that. So once again, when you're done here, you're going to hit finish now. And now it's going to ask you, do you want to accept the calibration? And the reason why that box is there is because if you accidentally hit finish earlier, it's not going to go. You could say no. But I'm going to accept the calibration, and it's going to say it's complete. The next question that comes up, always say yes. It's going to say, do you want to save the base location as a control point? Yes, yes, yes. Because if you say no to that, it's not going to create a northing easting and an elevation and a triangle where the base is at on your job site. You're going to miss that point. And if you go to put the base back and auto base fails, you're not going to have a point. So yes, 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 always save that point. As soon as you save it, you can zoom out and go over to where the base is and see that it says Site Tech Cal. I've got the base as a triangle there. Now that the site calibration is done, now you can see that I've got cut and fill wherever I go. Calibration's done. Right here, I've got to fill a 3/10 on this road. It needs an overlay. Calibration's done. You're good to go. It's saved. And that's it. So thank you for watching this video from Site Tech Intermountain on Siteworks, setting up the base and doing a site calibration properly.